Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we're going to be talking about the disastrous leadership in Canada as well as in the US, as Joe Biden has just announced that he will no longer be running as for the presidential race in 2024 and is now endorsing Kamala Harris. Now, this has been a hot topic in the news, and with the Canadian media, there's been quite a bit of coverage as well. And we've now heard some endorsements from some of the Liberal Party members, as well as the leader of the NDP, Jagmeet Singh, who claims that his values match up with Kamala's.
On top of that, we know that Vice President Kamala Harris is someone that has fought against the big banks, taken the side of working people, and has showed a real commitment to values that we share, values of defending everyday folks. As a former Attorney General, she's really committed to that work. And so it's an exciting opportunity. And I think the people of the United States make the decision that's in their best interest, someone that's going to fight for working people.
It's funny he says that because a lot of the people from the United States are wondering, what has she done and where has she been? Her approval rating has been pretty abysmal because for the past 4 years, nobody really knows what she's been up to or what she's been doing. I equate her to the Chrystia Freeland of Canada, and she's very known for her word salad, like Chrystia Freeland is.
Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia. Russia is a bigger country. Russia is a powerful country. Russia decided to invade a smaller country called Ukraine. So basically, that's wrong.
A group of the senators are getting $12 billion more into our community banks. So the importance of community banks is they are, as they are called, they're in the community, led by members of the community. They are people who understand the capacity of the community.
And there's compilations of her saying the same phrase over and over again about what can be has never been except for in the past. Some weird thing like that.
I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been, you know?
What can be unburdened by what has been. 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 What we can see, what we believe can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been.
And that there was only a 30-second portion of like a 4-minute compilation video of her saying this over and over and over again. And a lot of people say that she's arguably the main reason for this whole border situation, that Biden gave her the responsibility for immigration.
Serving alongside Joe Biden, Harris has at times been a magnet for criticism, especially after the president gave her responsibility for what they called the root causes of immigration.
We've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I mean, I don't understand the point that you're making. I'm not discounting the importance of the border.
To have her respond to the interviewer saying, well, I haven't been to Europe. Like, no, the point is you keep talking about the border, but you yourself have never been to the border to actually witness it, yet you're saying you're doing a great job with it. That doesn't make any sense. But according to the media, this is some sort of attack on her being black and a woman. It's misogynoir, as they like to call it.
The attacks against Vice President Kamala Harris have been rolling in since she announced her intent to replace President Biden as the Democratic presidential nominee. This happened, of course, as you know, over the weekend. Now, some of the attacks have been on Kamala Harris, the politician. Others have been personal digs. And ABC 7 News anchor and race and social justice reporter Julian Glover is here now with a look at the attacks against Vice President Harris and why some are more personal, and it's really interesting to explore. His story is new at 6, Julie.
Hey there, Dan. Yeah, while there are certainly valid criticisms of the vice president on her career, worldview, policies, even people saying she covered up President Biden's declining stamina, many of these attacks are steeped in misogynoir. It's a term that speaks to the unique mix of misogyny and racism faced by black women and are an attempt to other the vice president, of course, starting with her name.
Kamala Harris.
Columbia University Associate Professor Dr. Brandy Summers suggests there's more to it.
If it's not intentional, the intentional component is that they're not willing to learn how to say her name properly. It's creating another othering potential and say that she's too different to be a leader in this nation.
Along with her name, it's also her experience that's under attack. But not what Harris has done once she got a seat at the table. They're also attacking how she got that seat at the table.
100%. She was a DEI hire. He said he was going to hire.
Tim Burchett of Tennessee calling the vice president a DEI hire.
Meanwhile,
together we make history, not erase it. To me, the values of diversity, equality, inclusion are literally, and that's not kidding, the core strengths of America. That's why I'm proud to have the most diverse administration in history that taps into the full talents of our country and starts at the top with the vice president.
And so to call her a DEI hire, it's as if she would only have this role because of this emphasis on race and inclusion that undermines whatever experience she's had.
And now the Democratic Party is calling on Vice President Harris to use that political experience to do something never done before in history, mount a successful bid for the White House in just 4 months. Dr. Summers argues that asking a black woman to save the day is also rooted in problematic tropes that paint black women as maternal figures and saviors.
Like, you just can't win. It's misogynoir if you criticize her or if you say her name incorrectly and say it's not a DEI hire, but, you know, she's now in control of this role. But then it's also misogynoir by putting this savior or maternal role on her because she's a black woman. Like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. But let's continue listening to this.
Take this interaction from CBS's The Drew Barrymore Show, for example.
We all need a mom. I've been thinking that we really all need a tremendous hug in the world right now. We need you to be mamala of the country.
Black women are expected to be the ones to not only save individual households, but also kind of this national household. It becomes one of those things that's exhausting.
Yeah, I'm sure it could be, but is this not what she peddles all the time and the media peddles all the time, is how she's the first black vice president, a female black vice president, or a black female who's in a high power position? Even Jagmeet Singh earlier today in his little press conference said the exact same thing, how she's a racialized black individual and his daughters can look up to her and potentially be in that position one day.
And the idea of a Kamala Harris presidency is incredible. I'm a really proud dad of 2 daughters. Actually, Charlie's also a proud dad of daughters. And the idea of having the first ever female president of the United States, for my kids, my daughters, to grow up seeing or to know that there was a racialized black woman who was a president of one of the most powerful countries in the world, I can't even begin to imagine what that would be like in terms of inspiration. It would make my daughters feel like they could do anything to see that.
And sure, one could argue that representation is fantastic, but in 2024, I don't really think it's that necessary. If you're in the marginalized group, I'd say the world is at your fingertips. The world is your oyster, regardless of your race or your sexuality. As long as you're not the stereotypical straight white male, as they like to coin it, I think you're pretty much good. But just listen to these ladies in Forbes and how they say that Kamala's a trailblazer.
Now, you reference the historic nature of what could be her nomination. Of course, she is not officially the nominee for the party yet. That is still to be determined, though, as we'll talk about, a lot of people have thrown their endorsement behind her. But since we're taking a step back, what do you think regular voters should know about Kamala Harris that they might not be aware of if they haven't really been paying attention to her up until now?
Yeah, I mean, I think she has a history of trailblazing. So we go from her, being elected statewide in California as an attorney general. She went on to be elected to the U.S. Senate, the first black woman to be elected from the U.S. Senate to the U.S. Senate, from California, and only the second black woman to serve in the U.S. Senate. I mean, this is a place where we really have had dismal representation, both in statewide executive offices for Black women as well as in the U.S. Senate. And so in both of those places, she's navigated being either a first and an only or first or an only. And so she knows what this path looks like. And of course, she obviously then went on to become the first woman vice president.
And what's interesting is she keeps talking about California and how Kamala came up in California as an attorney. But here we have Tulsi Gabbard shitting all over her record from that exact time.
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting Black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Now that was back, I believe, in 2020 or 2021, but things obviously haven't changed. Her record is her record. But now this is with the new media coverage, the response that she's getting to this announcement.
In those roles, I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women. Fraudsters who ripped off consumers. Cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
The crowd ate it up. So too, calling in from home, still recovering from COVID.
Joe.
I'm watching you, kid. I'm watching you, kid. I love you.
Joe Biden, the first to endorse Harris when he pulled out of the race for the White House, setting off a crazed 24 hours for the Democrat Party.
Now, I might need to grab my tinfoil hat for this next section. However, a lot of people are starting to point out that ever since Biden has endorsed Kamala, he hasn't been in the spotlight. Now, there's claims of him having COVID, so maybe he's just bedridden or resting, who knows. But if you listen to the longer version of that clip there where she's talking to Joe on the phone, it sounds like she says, "Hey, Joe, I know you're still there on the recording," but then catches herself and says on the call. It's very, very brief, but just take a listen to this.
It is so good to hear our president's voice. Joe, I know you're still on the call, and we've been talking every day. You guys heard it from Doug's voice. We love Joe and Jill. We really do. They truly are like family to us. And we do, everybody here does.
It's mutual.
I knew you were still there. You're not going anywhere, Joe.
I'm watching you, kid. I'm watching you, kid. I love you.
I love you, Joe. Oh.
Now, who knows? I might be far into left field there, but I'm sure a lot of people have heard what I just pointed out there. And if you have, let me know in the comment section below. But if we now turn to the Canadian media, a lot of them were giving praise to Joe Biden, talking about his time in office and just as a politician, and then what Kamala is going to be bringing to this Canada-US connection. And they keep talking about her time as a student in Montreal when she was in high school, which I don't know what the relevance of that is.
Officials in Canada took time to pay tribute to Joe Biden.
I want to thank President Biden for serving the people for 50 years. It's not easy.
I saw a man with vision, someone who cared very deeply about people, and the kind of person that has done so much, not only for the United States, but for the world.
Joe Biden always acted in the best interests of the American people and the United States of America. And I think yesterday was no exception to that.
And with Biden out, no matter what, there will be a different president after the election.
What we're doing now as part of Team Canada is to engage with people on both sides of the aisle, making sure that we communicate that this is what I call the essential relationship.
The U.S. is Canada's biggest trade partner, accounting for nearly $1 trillion in trade in 2022.
The message to our American friends: we're your ally. We aren't your enemy. You know, we're stronger together.
Democratic leadership candidate Kamala Harris has ties to Canada. She went to school in Montreal.
If she's eventually made president of the United States, it would be a really good pick for the relationship between between Canada and the United States.
The leader of the NDP says a potential Harris presidency would be historic. The Canadian government says it's ready for whoever ends up in the White House, but Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has said that a second Trump presidency would not be easy. Donald Trump has already promised a worldwide tariff on imported goods, and Ottawa is already in talks with Trump's inner circle to try to push for an exemption. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
Now, I do find it interesting that the Champagne there is using the whole unity speak again, and we heard that after the Donald Trump attempted assassination. That's what Joe Biden came out with right away. We need to unite as a country, and I don't disagree with that. There is a lot of polarization between the left and the right, or the liberals and the conservatives, or Democrats, Republicans, whatever you want to label yourself as. And yeah, the animosity, the trying to get people fired for saying something online, as you see constantly on the Libs of TikTok page, where they're targeting these individuals who said something about Trump, potentially that he should have got shot or shouldn't have missed. They're like finding them at work and getting people fired. We had that story with the lady from Home Depot, which I'm not really for. I get it. You don't like what she said, but that had nothing to do with her job, and the job has no relevance to that. It's not just a Republican thing. It's not just a Democrat or a liberal conservative. Everybody just needs to kind of chill out on their whole political temperature, I guess you could say. And yeah, unity would be great, but the way we're going to do that is definitely not with Trudeau in power, not with Joe Biden. I don't know if it is with Trump or Pierre, but some change obviously needs to happen. Everybody's looking for a change, and the sooner this guy that we have in power comes back from his vacation, and maybe we can get an early election going, I think the better for all of us. But as always, this is just my opinion, and I'd love to hear from you guys. So please let me know in the comment section below what you think about all this. And as always, I will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks so much.